I basically continued to get autoimmune diseases and get worse on this wellness diet. Vitamin A was not a vitamin at all, but a toxin. It's much harder to stop taking stuff than it is to start.
Welcome everybody to this edition of Talkin Teeth with Dr. J. This is our 8th installment, and we're very lucky today to have Megan Stevens, the wonderful Megan Stevens, joining us. So you're in for a real treat. Megan, can you just give us a little, brief introduction on who you are and how you got here?
Sure. So I have a blog called eatbeautiful.net, and I think I'm like a lot of people who found themselves into a wellness community, one or another wellness community with a different diet, because I had all these problems growing up with like antibiotics and, wasn't breastfed and got mono as a teenager and all these things, was on birth control. Like a lot of people who develop autoimmune diseases or have to seek out a wellness diet, I had all these health problems from choices that were made when I was little. So in college, I basically became addicted to sugar. I had to have it every day. I didn't think of it like that, but I did. And when, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, my husband and I opened basically an organic ice cream shop. So I feel like this is relevant and kind of a fun story that not everybody knows, but so we basically created this soft serve frozen yogurt out of Nancy's kefir. And so we took organic kefir, we added organic sugar, and then we made all these flavors that could come out of soft serve machines. So it was like this trashy, fun junk food that was actually healthy. And it kind of gave me permission to eat my dose of sugar every day with probiotics and think it was healthy. And while I was there, I started teaching cooking classes. And so that kind of is, I was part of the ancestral community, like Weston A. Price Foundation, all of that. I was, eating organ meats, eating colorful foods, soaking and sprouting and doing sourdough. And I started teaching other people how to do that, how to make homemade sauerkraut, raw milk yogurt, all that kind of stuff. But ironically, what happened is I got sicker. Like I basically had some low-key health issues. I'd already had one autoimmune disease and I started getting worse. So I got a rash all over my face. I got really bad inflamed joints, basically arthritis, where I couldn't move my fingers. And I was, like I said, I was in my late 20s. And one of my friends told me about the GAPS diet, which probably many of you have heard of, but it's basically part of the Weston A. Price Foundation community or paleo community. It's an offshoot where you take out grains and sugar. And I ended up doing that with my family for 6 years, so a really long time, and was doing all the probiotics. And ironically, during that time, I got Hashimoto's, I got Raynaud's syndrome. A little bit later on, I got endometriosis. I basically continued to get autoimmune diseases and get worse on this wellness diet, and eventually phased off and did more like a paleo type diet, AIP, tried a bunch of other things. During this time, I was writing cookbooks and I kept kind of going back and forwards and thinking I was getting well, but in reality, I wasn't. So all that brings us up to about 7 years ago when I got another autoimmune disease, mast cell activation syndrome, which is like a histamine intolerance. And I also got depression. And I became just desperate researching online, trying to figure out what was wrong. And then I came across this concept of vitamin A toxicity, which of course did not resonate at all at the time because I was big into eating a lot of high vitamin A foods. And in fact, was making myself this like amazing drink every morning that was high in vitamin A that I loved. So I don't know, I probably should stop there, but that's like what brought me to learning about this concept of toxicity that I really hadn't been exposed to up until that point. And that has kind of opened my whole world once I was curious enough to try it.
Okay, but so that's awesome. But so 7 years ago is when you basically got onto this information that you've more or less been sticking with.
Yeah. So I can take it from there if you want me to, if that's more relevant, just tell you
what I want to know is like you've seen your, like what I've gathered from, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so maybe that's the more interesting part is that, so at that 7-year mark when I had the depression, I found out about this concept of vitamin A toxicity. It was the only thing that I could find that overlapped the histamine intolerance and the depression. And so I started this low vitamin A diet immediately. And within 2 days, the depression had lifted. Within 2 weeks, the histamine intolerance was gone, which is pretty much unheard of. And I think it was within 3 months I got off my thyroid meds. So I was seeing a naturopath in town. I wasn't really super involved with Dr. Garrett Smith's information yet. Originally I found Grant Genereux's ebooks, which we can talk about more if you want to.
Yeah,
but
I got
he was
slides on them. Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the one that originally came up with this whole theory that vitamin A was not a vitamin at all, but a toxin. And again, for anyone who's hearing this for the first time, I know this just sounds weird and doesn't sound correct.
Trigger alert. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All the defenses go up like, wait a minute. But yeah, so I mean, I just basically healed one thing after the next, mast cell activation syndrome. Everything went away. Endometriosis went away, everything, one thing after the next. So here I am 7 years later. During the process, I also learned about things like copper toxicity. And we definitely have nutritional gurus out there who are telling you to take more copper. But in delving into this information, a lot of what you do is look at the studies that haven't reached doctors yet. Like there are a lot of PubMed studies on all of this, but they just haven't trickled down into medical practices yet or into naturopathic practices yet. And so you have to go and read the studies yourself. And even going back to the 20s, you can look at the studies that were done on rats with vitamin A and see the mistakes that were made and also the truths that can be extracted from them.
You've been redoing those studies yourself, right? Like,
yeah, I've got gerbils behind me in the cage, and then I've had a lot of rats as well. So just trying to replicate those studies and show myself that anybody can do these studies and show that rodents can go on a diet with 0 vitamin A for years and thrive. Wow. And the scientists just came to false conclusions back in the 20s. They built a diet that wasn't correct. They didn't understand about precursors. But yeah, I think one of the best pieces of evidence about all of these concepts is just looking at the hundreds of people who have been able to put major health situations into remission or totally make them disappear through eliminating toxins and going on a low toxin diet, which doesn't have to feel super restrictive. In fact, it's super freeing and liberating because you keep healing and getting well and things like eczema go away. So that's where I am now, just like continuing to understand toxicity and helping coach clients through that. There's other metals other than copper, like nickel, to be aware of as well, arsenic. And so so basically isolating what are the sources of those toxicities, and then how can we help our bodies overcome. Yeah, go ahead.
And so the other thing that I think gives you a lot of credibility is that it's not just yourself. Like, your own journey is super powerful and I think is crucial, but then you do coaching and consulting for others. And I know you see a lot of these similar results with the people you work with. So that's why I wanted to, just so everyone knows, me and my wife are working with Megan as well to help us with some of our own challenges. So that's why I wanted to bring you on and share your wisdom with my whole community. So I think, why don't we just dive in? I've got some slides prepared for us to just help guide our conversation. Okay, do you see us?
Yes, I do.
Our fake AI version of us?
You did great. I love it.
Okay, so I just wanted to put this here to make sure, because we are going to be talking about some pretty heavy stuff. And so the content of this program is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute medical or dental advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a provider-patient relationship. Always seek the advice of your own qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical condition or treatment. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this show. Use of any information provided is at your own risk. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I'll just give you my background of why I came to this detox space, because I was doing my own education in biological dentistry and figuring out how I could help patients more with their health by removing all these sources of toxins in the mouth. So this is something I like to show, that a lot of people have had so much dental repair over the course of their lives that their mouth is like a construction site. And so you've got metals and you've got infected teeth and just all these things that are not very compatible with the human body. So I got into this stuff, around 2022, 2023, started working with patients, starting to remove some of these things. And what I quickly found was that some patients got better, like their body was able to heal naturally. And once I removed the thing that was, poisoning them from their mouth, they got better. Others didn't. And it was clear to me that they needed help with detox, and I didn't really know how to help them. And so what I learned in my training, this is basically all that I learned about detox in my training. On the right, you have Chlorella tablets. And so in the training I did, basically they said, yeah, after you do your treatment, just have the patient take like handfuls of Chlorella multiple times a day. And that's basically how they're going to bind toxins that their body's getting rid of. Do you have any comments on Chlorella?
Well, just that it's a source of vitamin A, carotenoids, and so it's going to add new toxicity to the liver. And just so everybody knows, the liver stores vitamin A. I don't know what the best timing for this information is, but
we'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the source of
that Chlorella is also high in copper. Have you heard that?
It makes sense. Most plant foods are.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't high in copper.
Okay. Yeah. So that's basically what we were trained to do. And maybe like some courses would talk about activated charcoal as well as a binder. And then have you heard of this, like apheresis or ionospheresis? Have you heard of this?
I haven't.
So they had it in the clinic that I did. I actually had my own surgery. They had this machine. Think of it like dialysis, but it cleans toxins out of your blood. So you hook up to it and it cycles all your blood, and it has all this filtration. And then they show something like this, and you can see all this black kind of stuff that it took out of you, right? So I didn't have this done, but I thought this was really interesting at the time, and I thought that this is something I would want to do. And I just kind of thought that because of our environment and like how much pollution and everything there is I thought maybe our bodies just couldn't deal with all this modern toxicity. And so something like this made sense. So they were charging like 5,000 Swiss francs for one round of this treatment. And so that's basically all I knew about detox. I mean, I knew about chelation and all that. But I didn't know that through the right nutrition and the right practices, our body's capable of healing itself from all this toxicity. And what about chelation? Do you have anything to say on chelation?
I don't actually.
So what I love about this approach that you and I are now resonating with is that you build the lifestyle so that you don't need any of these interventions. Like if you just went and hooked yourself up to one of these machines to pull all the toxins out of you, you haven't learned anything. And then in a couple of years, you're probably going to need it again. And so that's why I love Dr. Smith's and yours and these other people we're aligned with is no, you teach yourself, it's an education, and you teach yourself how to live in such a way that your body can naturally detox, and then you're not building the toxins back up again. Right?
Sure.
So yeah, it came pretty evident to me that I needed to up my game in the detox side of things and be able to guide my patients through this part of the healing journey. So the first one I came aware of was Dr. Pompa, one of my patients who had a lot of mercury toxicity. She got worse with the Chlorella. Then she found Dr. Pompa on her own, and then she shared his stuff with me. So I just like to share it here because there are other options out there. I haven't done his program. I've seen him lecture. I actually think he's great. What he doesn't touch on is the vitamin A. So I think like that's important for people to be aware of, but he's really good for mercury detoxing and like getting your body to do it itself, not using some of these harsh methods like chelation. I've heard people get worse from things like chelation too, because you're agitating the system to induce it to release all these things, and it can send you in the wrong direction. So he had his own bout with severe mercury toxicity, and he was even thinking he was going to die. And then he has this whole story. So I like to share others. And then Megan and I were both onto Dr. Garrett Smith's teachings. That's who we kind of endorse, I would say. Have you heard of Pampa?
No, I haven't. He looks familiar. His name is familiar, but I certainly haven't read a bunch of things he's done.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know if you had an opinion on it.
But I also didn't come at all of this from a heavy metal perspective. The heavy metal for me was later, like I learned about it partially through the process. So yeah, it wasn't what brought me to it.
Right. What I like to do to frame this discussion is I love analogies. And I think in terms of nutrition and detoxification, the car analogy is a really good one. And so you either have, we're all different as humans. So we're not all the same. Some of us maybe are like the sports car, or like high performance athletes or something, or maybe some of us are like vintage trucks. But the point is that what we put in our system, like the fuel that we use and how we clean our system, is very important. And if you had a car, you want to be putting a high performance car needs high performance fuel. And just like a car as well, if the oil gets dirty, like all the toxicity from the engine builds up in the oil, and then the engine doesn't run so well if the toxicity builds up. And so you do an oil change and you take out the bad stuff, and then you put in some fresh oil. And we can think of our bodies this way. It's perhaps an oversimplification, but sometimes simple is good. In this paradigm of healing and health and medicine, the way we're looking at things now is through a lens of toxicity and deficiency. These are the two major areas that lead to disease or suboptimal health. Are there other factors? Are there genetic factors? Can you perhaps catch an infectious disease that could take down your health? Yes, but all those things are out of your control. And so you really can't do anything about it. The way you were born or something you're exposed to, if you catch something, but you can control your environment with regard to deficiencies and toxicity. So that's what this presentation is about. Our society likes to really focus on deficiency. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. With all the supplements and superfoods, absolutely.
It's like something's missing. I'm not feeling my best. I must be missing some essential nutrient or vitamin or whatever. And these companies are happy to sell you all kinds of this stuff, right? And I have the little diagram of the car breaking down, because when our body breaks down, it's usually one of these two reasons. We tend to focus on deficiency in our society because we're kind of materialistic and like it's capitalistic. So you always think of like something's missing. I need to add something.
We like to consume also, right? Like we like putting stuff in. We like shoveling it in, whether it's a superfood or ice cream. We like trying to heal by shoving stuff in. Yeah. It's much harder. It's much harder to stop taking stuff than it is to start. Yeah.
Where I want to lead into is, I don't want to be mean. I'm going to show a picture of myself next. So, but if you look around our society, does it look like we're a deficient society? Or does it look like maybe we have too much abundance? Right?
Absolutely.
And so I love looking at old pictures. Even when I'm with my family and extended family, I'm always asking, because I'm going to put together some articles and stuff. But if you look around at old pictures of family barbecues and people at the beach and stuff, like everyone was thin and nobody was on a wellness diet.
Right.
So I love looking at it this way, because I feel like the default should be that we have healthy body weights and we don't have to worry so much about what we're putting into our body. But what's happened is we have an environment now that is so full of toxins in so many different forms. Our body is actually designed to deal with toxicity. What it does is put on fat, and fat is the storage organ for toxins, and it protects us from all these toxins that it can't get rid of by putting on extra body fat. I don't know if you want to add to that anything.
No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into this later too, but it's very informative when we think about what we want to eat, because a lot of the diets I talked about earlier, like the ancestral or GAPS diets, encourage you to eat a lot of fat. Even, bacon and pork and cooking with lots of tallow and all of these things, but that is where toxins are stored. And so while we don't need to be non-fat, we actually don't want to add extra fat to our diet either, because that is where toxins are stored.
Yeah, animals store toxins in fat.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you eat a piece of beef that's like really fatty, like a ribeye steak or something, and that cow wasn't so healthy, then the toxins that cow stored up are in the fat. So you can eat meat that is not the perfect meat, like it wasn't raised perfectly. And if you're eating a lean cut of meat, you're probably not getting too many toxins. Would you say
Right,
that?
that's true. Yeah, the toxins are not stored in the muscle usually. The exception would be with conventional beef. A lot of times people will really seek out those steaks that are, quote, well marbled.
Yeah.
And that is not a good thing, right? Marbled muscle meat is not a good thing. It means fat is totally through the muscle, and you've got toxins all throughout the muscle as well. So, but like you said, if it's lean muscle, then that would be a better choice.
I fell for the whole fat doesn't make you fat thing.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Adding tons of avocado and adding olive oil to my food and like using tons of butter, eating bacon, it was before I got onto this stuff now, but I was doing like macro tracking in order to like lose body fat.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my conclusions was, oh yeah, fat does make you fat.
Yep.
Turns out it does. So this was me. I was eating healthy, what I thought was healthy. We raise our own chickens. We have like the best quality eggs in the world. I was eating organs. I was taking desiccated organ supplements. And now what I know is I was way toxic in vitamin A. And no matter what I did, no matter the macros I tracked, no matter how much I ran or worked out or exercised, I would lose 10 pounds easy, and then I would get stuck. And now I know that, no, my body was protecting me. It was doing what it was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figured out the vitamin A. This was last July where I started trying the low vitamin A diet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just like a huge block lifted. And then I had no problem. I've probably lost like 30 pounds of body fat.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. That's a great testimony.
Here was my blood test. So 60 serum vitamin A.
Mm-hmm.
And this lab, it's actually like considered high on their reference range.
Right.
So I don't know. That's kind of interesting, but
yeah, it's high by any standards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm trying to do is get under 20. It might take a long time, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. My last one was 17.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I actually don't really get mine checked that often. I'm just kind of a put your head down and do the work kind of girl, and don't really go do the labs as often as I could. So I don't know exactly when it went down that low, because usually it will stay higher and then it will all of a sudden drop.
Right.
So I'm curious when it dropped to 17, but I'm excited for mine to go lower. And I think that that's another really good testimony for people to see that I'm, well below the reference range for what is ideal for vitamin A levels according to medical professionals. And yet I am thriving. I'm at my best energy, my best health. Every disease I had is gone. That information just isn't true. It's based on bad studies.
Yeah.
It needs to be updated. So it's encouraging, I think, that people don't need to be afraid of those low levels. And of course, our Love Your Liver community that Dr. Garrett Smith heads up is full of people like me who have also been doing it for years and have very low vitamin A and are thriving. We only feel better and better the longer we do it. So it's kind of a cool testimony. Yeah.
So this is my blood work from when I worked with Garrett. So I showed all of it just because I thought maybe we'd want to comment on some other things. For me, I'm working on my ferritin. So I've been giving blood. I went twice. My ferritin is like 210. Garrett says, around 50 would be good. So I'm going to go give blood one more time, and then I'll retest probably sometime this summer. But I'll let you speak on anything you want to talk about here.
Well, are you taking lactoferrin? I'm guessing that you are already. Yeah. So I find that to be a really balancing factor as well as giving blood. Lactoferrin can lower or raise iron according to what the body needs. So it just balances it beautifully over time. So yeah, I think you're on the right track. Just a matter of time.
Yeah, I feel like my interpretation is probably my liver was getting pretty sluggish and my energy was poor and I would need a lot of sleep. And now I'm feeling a lot better. I feel like just things are running better in my internal engine. And maybe as my liver works better, my ferritin will normalize on its own without much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely true.
So yeah, the other things that people get tested for, copper and zinc in the blood. When I have this conversation with new people, even dentists and doctors and stuff, and they're open-minded, but they're skeptical. They say, okay, where should I start? Like, should I stop eating eggs? I'm like, get your serum vitamin A tests. Just go get the blood test. Let's start there. And then
Okay, so I would just add to that there are times the serum vitamin A can be low, but the vitamin A in the liver can actually be quite high. And so serum isn't always a good indicator on its own. And so actually vitamin A levels are very hard to test. We have the serum test so that we can have a clue, we can have some little insight, but again, the liver can be totally jam-packed and toxic, full of vitamin A, and the serum blood level can be low. So it's not always a good indicator. Once it drops and you know you've been doing the diet for a long time, you can take heart that your liver has detoxed really well. But with you or someone starting out, it isn't a good indicator by itself. Usually symptoms are another good indicator of how toxic the liver is. So Dr. Smith goes off of multiple sources for this one.
So I got my blood tested about a month after I started low vitamin A. So do you think maybe that made my number go up? And that's
exactly, it can. It
okay.
can. Yeah. Once it's detoxing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show, this is who Megan mentioned earlier, Genereux. He's an engineer from Alberta in Canada. His story is that he was having kidney failure, bad eczema, extreme fatigue. He had blood in his urine, and then he was told to go on dialysis, and he was given 5 years to live. And then he started researching the trigger foods for eczema. And then he put them, as an engineer, he put them all on a spreadsheet and then looked up like what are all the compounds that are in all of these foods, and then looked at what was common about them. Mm-hmm. And it was vitamin A. And he was like, okay, I guess I'll try a vitamin A elimination diet. So he tried it for 3 weeks. He actually didn't get any improvement. And he said, okay, this was stupid. I guess I was wrong. I guess I'm just going to try for 3 more days. And if it doesn't work, then I'm just going to stop. And then after 3 days, all his joint pain went away and everything. So it kicked in. And then he went 10 years. And now it's been like 11 and a half years or something on almost a zero vitamin A diet. And he's gotten his serum level down to almost zero. And then he wrote 2 books on the topic. They can be found at this link here. So it's really, really fascinating stuff. And all of the evidence that he presents. For me, I read these books last summer when I was looking into this stuff. And this was the most significant thing I have learned in my entire university career. Like, it was so mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Especially because we thought we were on the right track with the Weston Price and all this stuff, right? Mm. Like, we thought we were awake.
Yeah, if someone's only going to read one, I would encourage them to read The Poisoning for Profits. It's his second book, and it's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit of a better read, I think. They're both great, though. But yeah, you can come pretty skeptical, open that book, and just see how honestly he looks at the studies. And he's super bright, super intelligent, and has incredible insights. I think he's so smart that it's irritating to him that other people don't realize what to him he figured out. But yeah, he sheds light on this in just a beautiful way. You can't really deny it. And then you try it out on your own body, and it's like, oh, I'm getting well. And obviously, like you said, people have different time frames. So like for me, 2 days and I had significant improvement. And for him, it took 3.5 weeks. So it's different for everyone.
The interview I always send to people who are curious about this is he went on Beth Martin's King Hero's Journey podcast. So if you just search in Grant Genereux King Hero on YouTube, you'll find it. That one's really, really good. He tells this whole story. Basically, what we're talking about here is an elimination diet, right? So I've got this list here. There's this picture of all these vitamin A foods on the top right. Dairy products are high vitamin A. Seafood isn't not as much a vitamin A thing, but there's a lot of toxins in the ocean, unfortunately, that get concentrated in seafood. So if you're trying to heal yourself, we generally recommend avoiding seafood.
And it can be a source of vitamin A depending on the fish or shellfish. And the shellfish are high in copper, and then the salmon is high in vitamin A. And any fatty fish is going to have vitamin A as well. Like a cold water, high fat fish is going to have vitamin
A. Like the cod, yeah. Yeah, cod liver oil. A lot of people are taking cod liver oil thinking it's healthy too.
Right. Yep. Or any fish oil, they're all high in vitamin A, right?
Wow.
Yeah, cod itself, the white meat codfish is usually lower in vitamin A, but like you said, cod liver oil is toxic in vitamin A.
There was something in Grant's book about there's like an Atlantic cod.
Oh, okay. It's possible if it's a cold water, high fat cod, then yeah, it could be.
Lower vitamin A.
Well, I was saying most cod, like if you go to the fish market or whatever, Trader Joe's, most cod is going to be leaner and it's going to be lower in vitamin A, similar to like flounder or that kind of thing. But in general, you're right. It's safer to just avoid all fish and shellfish. And if you're not sure which one, like I said, look for the warmer water, lower fat ones are going to be safer. Cold, deep water are going to be higher in fat and higher in vitamin A. And obviously a pink fish, like a pink rainbow trout or a pink salmon, higher in vitamin A.
Yeah, and just for the people listening who don't know, the color is very important. So these yellow, orange colored things, even red, and then even dark green, these are all retinol basically, and they're carotenoids in different form. Mm-hmm. So organ meats, there's some of the highest concentrations of these things that we want to avoid. Mm-hmm. I don't see any role for organ meats really anymore, do you?
No, definitely not. And I think it's probably helpful to mention that people will feel a short stage of feeling better with organ meats sometimes because they're high in the B vitamins. They can give you energy. They're obviously a protein source. And that misleads people because when they first start them, it's like, I feel better on organ meats. But over time, the vitamin A adds up and so does the copper. They're very high in copper as well. So over time, the toxins build up in the system and they are definitely a dangerous non-food food.
And isn't there kind of a therapeutic, like in the same way a pharmaceutical might work, vitamin A or retinol, like the way they use it in Accutane or in the chemotherapy drugs, like you could feel better on it, but it's poisoning you.
I don't think so with vitamin A itself. I mean, for like skin application, yes. Like if you were to use Retin A on your skin, it's an acid. It will burn the surface of your skin and your acne will go away temporarily.
Okay.
So there would be that. But I'm thinking internally, I'm not sure that I've ever heard of a honeymoon phase with vitamin A, except if there were other compounds in a food that made someone feel better. Okay. You know, like I said, with the liver, like you've got the B vitamins and you've got the protein that would, you know, provide energy. I don't mean to contradict. I'm not sure if there's something.
Because I'm asking you, like you.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
I don't think vitamin A by itself would make someone necessarily feel better. There could be a short-term benefit, like I said, for skin, but that goes away and it ends up being worse.
Yeah.
So.
And you absorb it through your skin too.
Right. Yeah.
And it's in a lot of these I like was trying to like regrow some of the hair on the top of my head, and it had retinol in it. The stuff you use a little sharp thing to like make little holes in your head.
Right. Yeah.
And then you put this serum on there and rub it in.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, guess I got to stop. That was a waste of $1,000.
Oh, yes. I think Dr. Smith has a variation on that without the retinol.
Okay.
Because he's got a whole program for regrowing hair and he does use those micro needles, but no retinol serum afterwards. Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah.
So then we've got all the orange root vegetables, carrots, sweet potatoes, squashes. That deep orange color is where you're getting the high dose. And it's a lot. Like a sweet potato is like, what is it, like 500% of your daily vitamin A?
Yeah, I believe. I don't know what percent it is. That's a good question.
Bell peppers, red, green, yellow, dark leafy greens. We get into kind of some other food groups here, like the cruciferous vegetables, the onions, garlic. These are problematic for other reasons. Tomatoes are another vitamin A food. Mm-hmm. Eggs are a big one. It was really hard for me to like get over my cognitive dissonance about eggs not being good for me.
A lot of people have that partially too because they're affordable and they're convenient. And so it's just really hard to stop eating them when you think they're healthy and they're easy. And they're a lot less expensive. And a lot of people don't want to eat meat at breakfast, but then they need protein at breakfast. So eggs solve all of those problems.
Right.
Right. So yeah, unfortunately. And back in the day, I always like to cite the Little House on the Prairie books by Laura Ingalls Wilder, because, she and Almanzo, for those of you who've read those, they were born in the late 1860s, and they obviously had no genetic toxicity. They both lived into their 90s, and they were eating pork and eggs, every day. So you could cite that and say, but hey, Laura and Almanzo lived into their late 90s. But again, we have to think about that genetic or inherited toxicity as well as the toxicity that exists while someone is alive. So right now we're inundated with toxicity all the time.
Yeah.
Plus we've inherited it from our parents, our mothers and grandmothers, etc. So back then those weren't a factor. And so the body could handle more of the, just any foods were okay. The body can handle some level of toxicity. It just doesn't want to be inundated.
Exactly.
And so
I have a slide on the bucket, right?
yeah,
we can all handle a lot of toxicity. When the bucket overflows, then that's when we start to get the problems, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
So I really like to use the carnivore example to frame the discussion, because when we're talking about elimination diets, the carnivore diet's kind of the ultimate elimination diet. And you've got people like Dr. Sean Baker, who's been 10 years just eating muscle meat steak, and his health is pretty darn good. Going back to this deficiency or toxicity conversation, you've got people out there. I'm not saying that this is the best diet. We're going to talk about that, but just for the purposes of the discussion, it's really important to take this factor into consideration, that people can live on only muscle meat for decades or more and have thriving health, and they reverse a lot of their chronic disease too. And so I think this example really is a good way to illustrate that, yeah, maybe it's actually the stuff you're getting rid of that is what allows your body to heal so much, rather than what you're missing. And you can basically get all the nutrients you need from beef.
And the only thing you maybe are going to add this anyways, the only thing that is missing on the carnivore diet is fiber, because everybody needs to be pooping twice a day, every day. So that would be the only thing that's truly missing in that diet.
Yeah. And so the pros are, it's simple. That could be a bad thing for some people. We'll talk about that, but it is low toxin, especially if you have, I guess the carnivores do say they should eat fattier meat. I think that helps them mitigate some of the downfalls, but it does meet the nutritional needs. The cons, no fiber, and it screws up your gut microbiome when you don't have any fiber. So there's bifidobacteria, they live off fiber. And so a lot of carnivores experience bowel issues, and fiber as well is important for helping us detox. So we'll talk about bile and how our liver gets rid of toxins in the bile, secretes them into our digestive tract. And then we need things in our system to bind the bile. Otherwise, it just all the toxins get absorbed right back up. So that's one of the big downfalls of the carnivore diet, is that it doesn't facilitate detox so well because of this lack of fiber. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Okay. And then it's a little bit boring and restrictive. That's a problem for a lot of people. And that's why you're here, because you're a master at making this kind of low toxin diet enjoyable, right? So couple of variations, let's say you were just kind of a hardcore person and you weren't somebody that really needed a lot of your enjoyment in life from food. So I'm kind of like this. I can eat the same thing. I can eat beef, rice, and beans every day and be pretty darn happy. So that's the cowboy diet. This is what Grant Genereux did for 10 years, pretty much. He had a few different iterations in there, but you can heal on a simple diet like this. You've got fiber in the beans. You could add apples, which have great soluble fiber. You could have some bananas, which are good for potassium, even though they look yellow, but the inside, the flesh is white. So they're not a high vitamin A food. There's the Highlander diet, so beef and oats. This diet that me and Megan are advocating for, if you were to do the most elimination diet version of it, I think it would look something like this. Is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, the most extreme versions are right here. And the only thing I like to add about Grant Genereux, for people who aren't familiar with him, is he's now cycling with men in their 20s and 30s. And so just, it's fun to know that like he went from literally dying of kidney disease to being really athletic. And I mean, reaching new heights athletically, which is where he is right now. I think he's in his 70s.
Yeah, I think he was sick. I read a blog from a year or two ago, and he was like 65.
Okay.
And
And you can
when he
see
started,
from the photo, he's an older man, but go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, he like couldn't go up a flight of stairs when he was really sick.
Yeah.
And now he could do like 65 push-ups in a row, like his age. Right?
Yeah. Right. Right. And so that's what, yeah, he was eating the cowboy diet for 10 years and still is. So it's very encouraging and counterintuitive when you've been indoctrinated with the other Weston A. Price type rainbow diet mindset. But yeah, when you think about a lot of native cultures that live off of beans or rice, they would add meat if they could afford to. And that's really your basic healthy diet is beans, rice, and meat. Or in my case, oats agree with my body better than rice. So there's not, I guess I would say there's not a formula. There's not a one size fits all. There's many variations on this. So like some people really prefer barley, for example, or, people have their best grains, or for some people, beans don't agree with everyone. So, it can look different for each individual. It's not meant to be one size fits all, but you're right. These are the sort of simplest, if you had to break it down to the most basic possibilities, this is it right here.
Yeah. And the reason why we brought Megan is because for a lot of people, this probably looks like hell and you would rather die. And she has figured out how to make this enjoyable and fun and make it possible for people who do get a lot of their enjoyment in life out of food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I made this slide a little while ago just to put a whole bunch of different types of food that you could include on this low toxin diet. One, like pasta, for example, like if you buy your pasta from Italy, like the imported brands from Italy, it's not sprayed with a lot of these things they like fortify food with here, like the folic acid, and they even fortify with vitamin A, vitamin D. And they spray the grains with stuff saying that it's healthy. And that is actually what screws a lot of people up. And it's not the wheat, it's not the gluten. So if you can have wheat, that's a one really nice thing about this diet is you get to have bread back, right? If you make nice, clean bread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people do recover from gluten intolerance or celiac. They think it's a lifetime diagnosis, but it doesn't turn out to be, because when you heal the liver and heal the gut, those things go away, and you can add back in sourdough bread and semolina pasta from Italy and all kinds of other things. So yeah, it is very healing, and it ends up being great news down the road when you can add things back in.
Yeah. Anything else you see here that you want to chime in on?
Not necessarily. I think, like you said, we're going to go into some of the details of food compounds here, probably. Are you going to? Yeah. So we can talk more in a minute. But I love this. I love what you did. I mean, it's just beginning to show that there can be a lot of variety here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't a list, kind of like what I just showed before, just in list form. Let's just keep moving here. But let's get into toxicity. Mm-hmm. So I like to just use the analogy of a bucket, and our body is able to handle a lot of toxicity. My favorite example is Keith Richards. I just watched a Rolling Stones documentary on the weekend, and the guy is, he should have been dead a long time ago, but he's abused his body like crazy, and he's still pretty healthy, right? And so humans can, under the right circumstances, handle a ton of toxicity. You've got some examples here like metals and, pharmaceutical chemicals and those kind of things. When the bucket overflows, the overflowing is the symptoms. It's the brain fog and the headaches and the fatigue and the muscle and joint pain and the skin issues, eczema, autoimmune diseases, maybe cancer, those kind of things. The liver is kind of our body's main detox organ. And so it's got this capacity to process and handle a lot of toxins, and just it can fill up and it reaches its maximum. And then that's when things start to break down in the system. Mm-hmm. I like to categorize this into 3 different areas. So on the left side over here, we've got the intoxing from what we're actually putting in our mouth. So that's the food and whatever else, even the dental stuff that can be in our mouth. That's the way the toxins get into our body. Then we've got the liver, which is the detox engine, and it's processing all the toxins. So there's some foods that we're going to talk about here that are not they're not technically toxic, but they affect the liver's ability to process toxins. And so they work against us if our goal is to net decrease our load of toxicity. So we'll talk about some of those things in a minute. And then there's the elimination phase. So the main pathway that our body excretes toxins is through our bowel. And that's because bile, which is processed and dumped into our small intestine by the liver, ends up there. And then whatever binds to fiber or some of these other things we might take to help pass toxins allows us to pass things in our bowel and not get reabsorbed. So these are the three different areas that are important to understand when you're trying to figure out how to detox. And so you can think of it like a bank account. Dr. Smith likes to use this. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be intoxing less than you're detoxing. So on the top here, if you are taking in more toxins than you're getting rid of, your health will get worse. If you're detoxing more than you're intoxing, your health gets better. And I think your story at the beginning was a very clear example of this.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I don't want to do is like cast a bunch of fear into people and make people think, oh, this is toxic, this is toxic, this is poison. I'm just going to say these are the things that we don't need to live.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people come at food and health with different perspectives. I think I'm in the minority because I'm so curious about toxins and wanting to be well. I'm kind of willing to hear anything and willing to do anything. But I know there are people who get so wrapped up in their food fears and it can really mess with someone. And we don't want to do that. So the point is to educate and know what things to reduce and why. And then you make it unique for your body and, your own psychology. So you can go forward in a healthy way for your unique health goals. But we also don't want to hold back information. So it's helpful to know copper is a heavy metal, nickel is a heavy metal, and these are in foods. And if you inundate your body all the time with rainbow foods or with organ meat, you will end up copper toxic. And that's why you'll have the symptoms you have. And so then you just have to decide, are you willing to reduce those foods, reduce the intoxing, like you said, and so that you can start detoxing that heavy metal or whatever it is. So there's a purpose. There's a purpose in the information. It's not meant to limit people or restrict people or cause fear or cause psychological restrictions.
Yeah, like the point with the last slide too, like this whole equation here is you don't have to be perfect to keep moving in the right direction.
Right.
And so I was down in Florida on the weekend with some friends and there's this amazing fish restaurant and you better bet that I did order the fish and enjoyed the hell out of it, right? So yeah, you don't want to make a complex around food, and especially with your kids too, you don't want to project onto them either, right? Like,
right.
And
absolutely.
You have a ton of experience with that. So
yeah. And I think that's part of why I went the direction I went, which is trying to create the broadest food list possible, because I have kids and I didn't want them to reject the notion of reducing toxicity. So I was like, sure, you can have the berries. Sure, you can have this. And I'm not going to start telling them about polyphenols because it's probably not relevant for them.
Right.
And I want them to be detoxing on some level so it doesn't have to be perfect. And that, again, is customizable to everybody because some people will get a backlash if they go and have fish at some restaurant and they feel terrible the next day. They probably won't do that again. So, everybody's different. So you just have to cater it to your unique body. And like we could talk about nightshades, for example. They're notorious for causing inflammation and joint pain. So if you know you have joint pain, that's a good one to zero in on and say, well, how hard would it be for me to eliminate red bell peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, and potatoes? And obviously there's a few other things that are nightshades as well, but it's a pretty short list of produce items that's pretty easy to pull out. And nightshades build up in the system over time and they're just so easy to pull out. So I think this whole approach is finally the truth. I mean, we don't have an agenda here. We're not asking people to be more restricted than they want to, but we're breaking down and showing these are the compounds that can be egregious, that can cause problems. Might as well know about them. And then you can decide based on your symptoms or health goals, which ones you want to deal with. And if you want to reduce all of them, here we've got sort of a dietary outline here that will be helpful. On my blog, I have a post that's a whole list of anti-inflammatory foods. It's a PDF you can print out, and it's broader than the low vitamin A diet, just by a little bit. But just because I want people to be able to flourish and feel like they're enjoying their food, and you don't have to focus on all these compounds unless you want to, on what they're called and what they are.
Awesome. Is there anything on that list on the left that is missing?
Yeah, so there are a couple. So one would be aldehydes. This was one that kind of hid from me in the beginning. I started a low vitamin A diet, totally forgot about aldehydes. I think they were mentioned somewhere and I just forgot. So examples of aldehydes are foods that are heated really high to high temperatures, or more commonly like fermented or aged foods. And so I reintroduced, without knowing about copper at the time, because I started this whole process 7 years ago before people were really talking about copper. I reintroduced chocolate and I reintroduced kombucha. And yogurt's another example. These are foods that seem benign, but aldehydes do impede detox. They basically are really hard to break down in the body. And so it makes the liver busy doing something it doesn't need to be doing. And if you can reduce aldehydes, it frees up the liver to do a better job with general detox. So aldehydes are worth mentioning, I think, just because it's so easy for something like that to creep back in. Like, why can't I have kombucha? Well, you can, but you might just want to have a sip because there's plenty of probiotics in one sip of kombucha. Right. You don't need to be drinking a glass full or 6 ounces every day. So yeah, that's a helpful one to know.
Is sauerkraut's like high aldehyde then?
Yes, any fermented food. Yeah, so like in like soy sauce and yeah, anything that's aged or fermented. Yeah.
All right. So then I've got this section on the right. These are some things that slow down your liver's ability to detox. So I've got the sulfur containing foods like the cruciferous vegetables. Do you want to just list all those for us?
Yeah, so sulfuric foods, also like polyphenols, the plant antioxidants, both of those are going to deplete vitamin B1 and they're going to slow down detoxification. So the cruciferous vegetables you've got listed, but cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, all of those. And you can have a little of those. You can dabble a little, obviously, but if you want an anti-inflammatory diet where your liver's working its best to detox, then pulling those sulfuric foods out. Egg whites are another sulfuric food. Epsom salts are sulfuric, even though they're not a food. So yeah, those are helpful. Vitamin C, again, it slows down detox. So sometimes if you're sick, one of the reasons that vitamin C helps is it shoves the toxins back into the liver, basically. So yeah, it's helping you, but it's helping you short term. And what we're talking about is doing like a bigger detox, a long-term detox. And again, everyone has to choose their approach. Someone else might say like, no, I just want to be lower inflammation foods. But if you want your liver to actively be detoxing, then you don't want to be putting in a lot of sulfuric foods or vitamin C or polyphenols. And no matter, how healthy people tell you polyphenols are, phenol basically means plant poison or plant pesticide or plant toxin, and poly means many. So if you eat a lot of berries, you're going to be slowing down your detox process.
And then we should talk about onions and garlic and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, so they are also sulfuric foods. They are toxic. Dr. Smith talks about the fact that if you eat garlic and you smell it coming out of your skin, within the hour or on your breath, that's your body detoxing it. It slows down reaction times. So yeah, they're not healthy foods like we've been told.
And I'm so glad, because a lot of people think garlic is like a superfood and they like swallow cloves at a time and stuff, and the smell is so offensive that comes off. And I deal with it in the clinic, and I actually have to, I deal with very health conscious people, so sometimes they're even taking like DMSO and stuff like that, and it's so hard to be around someone that has that type of smell coming.
Right.
So I send out an email like before they come. I'm like, please, no garlic, no DMSO, no onions. Now it's nice that I know, like, oh yeah, those things, by the way, they're not even good for you.
Yeah. Now you know why you've always been so sensitive to them.
Yeah.
I see you also have fat there, excess fat. I guess we've already touched on that, just that it is the storage place for toxins. So we just don't want to add extra in.
Yeah, like let's say you're cooking ground beef. Even if it's a leaner beef, it's going to have quite a bit of fat still. You don't need to add butter or oil or whatever to grease your pan. The meat is going to grease the pan. And adding things like olive oil and like can you explain, it helps you absorb more of the toxins, right? Is that correct?
Right. Well, there's fat soluble, quote, vitamins. Vitamin A, D, and E are all fat soluble. And so they
Yeah.
basically, oil or fat is a carrier and helps distribute those throughout the body. So it causes more damage. And I don't know that we have the breadth or the time here to go into vitamin D and E, but vitamin D, we should be getting from light, right? We want our bodies to produce it. We don't want to be taking it orally.
So I had a really good conversation with Garrett about that when he had me on his podcast. So there is a nuance to that discussion. I saved the clip. It's like a 16-minute discussion. And he actually said, if you're trying to heal from dental surgery, for example, and you're not going to get light to have enough vitamin D, there may be an argument for short-term supplementation. So I was happy to hear that from him, because I sometimes need to use something for the short term to get someone to heal from their surgery.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing I love about him is he isn't so dogmatic. I mean, he's really interested in what is true. And so he will even go back and say, look, I was wrong about this. I'm going to tell you why. And he's willing to not just have a hard line on everything. Sometimes there are nuances. And certainly that has to be the case, because all of us are still learning. We're still trying to understand physiology. And so it's just very honest of him to say, well, I'm reconsidering that, or, hey, I see a nuance here, or we don't fully understand how this mechanism works.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about what we do need. I have this list here: the minerals, sodium, potassium, zinc, magnesium, selenium, and molybdenum. And then nutrients like protein is important, at the very least, for even like smaller women. Probably like 50 grams of protein a day should be a minimum. And then maybe up to 100 for like a bigger, someone like me who's like 200 pounds and muscular. I even think, a lot of the trends these days, they overdo it on protein too. I was doing a lot higher protein before, and I don't think I needed that much. I can still build muscle. It's like, I think we overdo it on protein nowadays too.
And I don't know about you, but when I listen to my body tells me what I need, which macronutrients to eat. Like, I can tell if I need more protein, I can tell when I should stop, and I can tell when I need carbs. I may be more sensitive than other people, but I do think that if we work on that, we can increase our intuition about what our bodies have had enough of and what they need more of, as long as we're and I was going to say, as long as we meet a certain protein minimum, but that even can vary person to person. There are people who truly need less protein, but most people, I agree with you, that window is correct for most people, and most people don't get enough. And it's an important part of detoxing and building muscle and it's a building block. So as we're building healthy tissue, we need it. It's an important part of detox, is what I was meaning to say there.
Right. Yeah. And then, we need some fat, right? Anything you want to say on that?
Just that different people need different amounts of fat. So like someone, like I'm what Dr. Smith would call an undertype. So I do actually add a little bit of fat into my diet. So again, intuition is important, and not making hard and fast rules is important. Having general principles in place, and then listening to your body. And craving something is different than your body needing it. So obviously you might feel like you need ice cream. That's different than deciding, okay, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to my food each day because I just thrive better with that, or I'm losing weight without it, or, so there are people who need more than other people, but most people don't need to add much.
Okay. And then fiber, we already sort of touched on it, but do you want to talk about the difference between like soluble and insoluble fiber?
Basically, if you can have both forms, it's ideal. And that's one of the nice things about beans, is they do offer both soluble and insoluble. Again, what I have found my clients is that different bodies need different things. So some people need more soluble, some people need more insoluble fiber. But basically, we want that bulk to carry the bowel movements through every day. We want 2 solid bowel movements a day, or even 3, 1 for each meal. And so foods like apples and beans and kiwi are really good foods. And then if you need to, you can add in supplements like apple pectin or psyllium husk, or Dr. Smith has one called sun fiber that he likes. So you just need to find the right balance of different fibers. And for most people, it's a combination of a couple things. And then magnesium, we haven't really talked about the minerals, but one of the roles of magnesium is relaxing the body, and it also relaxes the lining of the GI tract. So it does a great job at creating regularity, and potassium does as well. So yeah, just the goal with fiber is regularity, and you just have to find that right balance of food and supplements to make sure because that's the main way we detox is through our alimentary canal. And so you've got to be pooping every day because that's the main way the body takes out the trash.
So potassium, so I used to think that we needed like that Celtic salt or like some of these mineral salts, and they've got 70 minerals in it, and that was a great thing and all of that, right? But I don't do that anymore. Now I just use like a 50-50 salt. So half sodium chloride, half potassium chloride. Is that in line with what you think is good to do?
Yes, and then most people need actually more potassium than sodium, and so then you add more potassium on top of that. So diluting one sodium chloride, you use I want to mention the cleanest salt you can get out there that I know of is the diamond crystal Celtic salt. You can find it on Amazon. It's like $9 for a box. It's very affordable, but you want a white salt that's free of toxins. And then by diluting that with potassium, you're already creating a better electrolyte balance than doing all that sodium without potassium. So you're right at 50-50 with what you're doing, but then the body wants more potassium than sodium. And that's why we eat bananas or kiwis or add like a potassium powder on top of what you're doing. Ideally, you don't have to, but a lot of people see benefits to energy, mood, bowel movement, sleep, all those things when you add in potassium. So it's ideal to have, more potassium than sodium.
Okay. And do you take this Keystone also?
I don't personally, and I think it's because my zinc number is pretty high. Like it used to be at 75 milligrams a day, and now I think I'm down to 50, but that's after years of 75. So I just didn't buy the Keystone because I was taking not those exact amounts of the minerals that are in that. But I do think it's a great option for most people, and especially if you haven't had the blood test done, so you don't know your numbers. That's the multivitamin you want to take if you're just going to guess, and take it, see how you feel, and if you feel great, that's a pretty safe place to be without testing.
Right. Yeah. So basically, that's all I take nowadays. I do the one with the niacin.
Great.
I enjoy the niacin flush.
I do too.
Yeah, and then
we should probably say this was designed by Dr. Garrett Smith. So it's designed by a doctor, the doctor that we're talking about, and he knows, he's done so many blood and hair analysis over the years. He knows the amount that most people need. So he's based that on all of his patients.
And I should add, like when I see my patients, like we're talking about something really specific. So we're physically entering into the jawbone, cleaning out these issues. And there's a protocol, which I know we don't like the word protocol, but there's some things we need to do to facilitate healing of the bone. And so I was really glad to clear that up with Dr. Smith, because he basically agreed with me. He's like, yeah, you might need them to do a bone healing protocol for like a 6-month period, for example, and then we can always deal with the other stuff after.
Okay.
So yeah, just so anyone listening to this, you'll probably, when you're in your consult with me, we might be talking about some different micronutrients and stuff here, and it's for that specific reason. Or do you want to talk about niacin and flush niacin at all?
Just that it goes deeply into the tissues and helps them detox. So it's a really nice, easy supplement to take. You have to not be afraid of the flush. And you can look on nutritiondetective.com for more information, or on YouTube with Dr. Smith's information. But so you might get a little, hot or itchy or that kind of flushing feeling, but it's going into the tissues and it's detoxing them gently but powerfully. And it's a great daily supplement to take to speed up the whole healthy detox process.
First time it happens, it's a little bit alarming.
And
like on fire.
Even the 100th time, because it varies, right? So sometimes you'll have a really mild flush and you'll think, oh, I love flushing. And then, the 100th time you take it, all of a sudden you get a really intense one. And it's like, okay, this is borderline uncomfortable, but usually I like the feeling. I don't know if you've had one like that yet, but I've had a couple where I'm like, wow, this is.
Well, I thought I had to pull over on the side of the road.
Yeah, because you never know. I've started taking mine right before bed. Sometimes it'll help me fall asleep, but that way, otherwise it can happen any point in the day, right? Like if you take it with breakfast, it's not necessarily going to cause a flush with breakfast. It could happen 3 hours later when you're in an interview, and then you're like, I how do I explain why I'm beet red right now?
People have to be aware that most supplements that have, it's vitamin B3, right?
Yes.
So nicotinamide is the one you'll most commonly find, and you actually don't want that. They put that in supplements instead because it doesn't cause a flush, because people find the flush uncomfortable, so it's unpopular, but it's actually not what, it doesn't have the same benefit. So go ahead, I'll let you elaborate there.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure that you're looking at flush niacin that's nicotinic acid specifically. You don't want it to say anything else. There's several variations on it. So
Yeah.
you don't want niacinamide, you don't want any of the others, you just want nicotinic acid.
Let's go on to glutamate here. Another trigger alert.
Yeah, so basically our cells are supposed to have glutamic acid in them. And what this supplement is, in the sort of common terms, is MSG. And that's why it's controversial. And Dr. Smith and his partner Kelsey figured this out, like 6 months ago or something. And it was just very controversial for them to even say it out loud that MSG was healthy. And what most of us didn't realize or don't realize is that when MSG is totally pure, it is just glutamic acid. It is something that should be in our bodies naturally, and it should be in our cells, but a lot of times it's replaced by copper. And so when you take pure MSG, it kicks the copper out, and the glutamic acid goes into the cells and gives you the kind of energy you're supposed to have, as opposed to energy from copper, which is a very unnatural kind of electrical current that causes EMF sensitivity and fight or flight feelings and anxiety and all of that. And so a lot of times people associate MSG with the unhealthy foods that it's put on top of. So the headaches and those kinds of things are not from pure glutamic acid. So there's like one brand of MSG that's pure and clean, and that's the one Dr. Smith recommends. And a lot of us have seen improvements. You can watch for improvements with adding glutamic acid in mental health. You can see like bleeding stop. So women who have bleeding problems, it's not just women. Like I even had like a sore on the inside of my nose for ages. And I had some bleeding in the back of my throat. Both of those went away when I started MSG. So there's all kinds of side benefits. I think Dr. Smith would say he gets a better workout through MSG. Like he builds muscle better. He feels more energetic when I'm at the gym. So there's definitely various benefits from that. And I've seen it with my own kids as well, like mental health improvements. So we've firsthand seen the improvements of MSG and no headaches.
It's called MSG, but it should just be called sodium glutamate. It's just like one sodium and glutamate, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's very misleading and it's confusing. But if you have the courage, you can start with just sprinkling the clean, pure brand on your food and see how you feel. And then you can go all the way up to a tablespoon a day, which is quite a bit. And most people don't need that much. But I'm someone that does need higher doses. And so you can experiment with gradually ratcheting up and seeing if you have a certain symptom that improves by increasing over time.
All right. You already touched on lactoferrin, so I think would you consider that an essential nutrient or not really?
No, but it's just a helpful one. There is one more I want to mention actually that you don't have here, and that is vitamin K2. Okay. I actually want to ask you about this one, but I believe it's helpful for my daughter's teeth. And we do know that it is, I mean, like when if Dr. Smith were to talk about it, he would say like, yeah, vitamin K balances some of the other nutrients we know are good for dental health, and magnesium and vitamin D. Well, I wanted to go ahead and say what you were saying, and then I just wanted to tell you what I've seen with my daughter's teeth.
So it kind of goes into the vitamin D conversation.
Yes.
So what I learned was vitamin D helps calcium absorption in the gut. So it's not like if we're talking about building healthy, like strong teeth and bones, then it is a calcium problem, but it's not, it's about how the calcium is being handled. It's not about the presence or lack of calcium in the diet. So vitamin D3 or 25 hydroxy vitamin D level in the blood, is a proxy for helping absorption of calcium in the gut, but then it's in the bloodstream. So that's a problem. You don't want the calcium in the bloodstream. You want it to go into the bones. And that's what K2 and also magnesium, they're called co-drivers for vitamin D. And then it changes the balance so that the calcium goes into the bones and into the teeth rather than staying in the bloodstream. So that's how we were trained to help our patients with healing bone or actually even improving cavities, like, or trying to remineralize cavities, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So we can dive into it more, but I'm of the opinion that much rather get our vitamin D from the sun or like a spurty lamp or something. I'm not a fan of long-term vitamin D supplementation for obvious reasons, but the K2 and the magnesium, it's those three are like the way to grow bones if you're healing from surgery or grow healthy teeth and all that kind of stuff.
So what we've observed, we have 4 kids, and our 4th child was adopted from Africa when she was 4.5. So she was malnourished for the first 4.5 years of her life and came to us with cavities. And I started using a topical calcium zinc liquid on her teeth and also using a xylitol type rinse to kill bacteria. Initially, I saw an improvement in the cavities, but they got worse again. But what I found was that when I added the vitamin K2 in, you'll have to correct me and educate me if I'm wrong, but what I was seeing was dark spots, which I think is the dentin. Is that right? And when she took the vitamin K2, it seems like the porosity decreased and the dentin went away. So like, I'm not sure, I think you would say like, you're not seeing cavities heal, but I'm seeing the porosity improve with the addition of the vitamin K. What would you say to that?
So I don't know if it was the dentin or if it was like, sometimes you get staining on the enamel where a cavity is forming and it goes like very brown.
Yes.
So dentin is underneath the enamel, and it's kind of a very yellow, like if enamel is more white, then the dentin is more yellow.
Okay.
And so it sounds more like it was
staining.
It was like decalcification in the enamel.
Mm-hmm.
So the early stage of a cavity is a decalcification without an actual cavitation.
Mm-hmm.
The cavitation happens a little bit later when there's nothing left. And so it sounds like it was demineralized, and then maybe like that makes sense that the K2, it helped the enamel pick up more minerals and calcium and stuff, and then it remineralized.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just going to be this ongoing battle. But I think for her, having that regular vitamin D with the spurty lamp, and then the vitamin K constantly in her diet, which we supplement, in addition to the magnesium, and then we do the calcium zinc, which she spits out. She doesn't swallow the calcium, but it's just topical. We've got all these components, and I think we're making headway.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if this is the inside of the tooth and then this is the enamel,
Yeah.
you only expose the dentin if the enamel's gone.
Okay.
And then the enamel never comes back.
Okay. So,
but if it's just demineralized, think of it like a scaffold, and just like some, it fluctuates in the mineralization.
mm-hmm.
And so before the enamel totally goes away, it can just demineralize, and then that's where it can actually remineralize.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. I don't know if that kind of
I think
it.
that's totally accurate. I looked up, I was like, what could be the dark spots on her teeth? And dentin was one of the options. So I was like, I'll ask him.
That's one of the Weston Price staples, right? Is actually K2 is like the factor activator X, right?
We should mention Dr. Smith is very opinionated about it being MK4 and Kelsey. Like, I think she's the one who had the original insight. It cannot be MK7. Right. It's important that it's MK4. So if you're looking for K2,
so many things.
Yeah. So many little details.
Okay, so we'll keep going. So we've got these things that are helpful for detox. So the natural way is fiber, right? Soluble fiber. So like we talked about, apple, psyllium husk, organic is important. Apple pectin, beans, oats. Do you like organic rolled oats? Is that your preference?
Yeah, I love them. Absolutely. They're a staple for me.
I love them every day.
Yeah.
And the overnight oats, is that kind of your thing too?
Yeah. I learned that from Dr. Smith. You can just put room temperature water, filtered, reverse osmosis or distilled water, 20 minutes, and you're going to actually release fewer hard to digest compounds than if you cook. So yeah, I do overnight, but sometimes I do just 20, 30 minutes of soaking, and then I eat them like that.
Yeah. Morning of works. Like I usually like have it at lunch or something.
Nice.
And then these are all these like additional things we can use to help our detox. So activated hardwood charcoal, you might find coconut charcoal out there. It can tend to be moldy the way they make it, so maybe not the best. Hardwood tends to be a little bit better. Zeolite, I have the link, your link here. So there's this Zeolite Labs. There's your code for 10% off. And then Dr. Smith makes one as well.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about?
Sure. Well, zeolite's kind of my favorite. If you have a favorite supplement, zeolite's my favorite. And that's just because I have been so toxic over the years, and it's incredibly powerful at binding toxins, and it binds copper specifically, as well as nickel. So the latest sort of movement on the diet that's optional is going low nickel. And when I went on it, I just had no reaction because I've already detoxed so much using zeolite.
wow.
But it's also been very powerful for me with my copper issue. And the TRS is another form of zeolite. It's a spray nanoparticle zeolite that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So if someone is having mental health issues or something where they feel like there's heavy metals in their brain and they're really wanting to address the brain first to prevent or address some symptom, even sleep issues, sometimes the spray can be helpful. The spray can also be helpful for fertility issues. Both of them help with balancing hormones, because they help to detox estrogen, excess estrogen, which is prevalent with copper toxicity. So zeolite is just great. It also detoxes microplastics, which of course are prevalent.
It does mercury too, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, it does. Yeah. So it's good to use it after fillings are taken out in a controlled way.
And
So
the sourcing's important too, right? Like it's another one that can be a problem.
Which one? What did you say is?
Zeolite, like you can get bad zeolite.
Right. Well, so the thing is, there's more effective zeolite and less effective zeolite. And so, for example, you can get one from Amazon that's what would be called filled, and it comes to you as it would be in nature. It's already got toxins in the pores. There's more room for storage, but it doesn't have as much storage room. And so the zeolite you have here is called like supercharged. It's emptied. All of the openings, it's kind of like honeycomb, what it looks like. All of those are emptied out. So it's only got room to adsorb different heavy metals. And so there's just more space for detoxing in the good zeolites.
And then the charcoal is better for vitamin A detox.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was, interestingly, I started the diet so early that wasn't even part of the protocol when I started. And so we got boils. Every member of my family got multiple boils from detoxing vitamin A without activated charcoal. And these days it's like sort of a no-brainer. Like if you're going to detox vitamin A, start the charcoal. I'm sure boils wouldn't happen for everyone, but I thought it was fascinating that both my husband and I both got them, and we're obviously very different in terms of our backgrounds. So so it is very good at binding vitamin A in the digestive tract as it detoxes and protects you from the vitamin A wreaking havoc on its way out otherwise.
And then I just put the picture of the Facebook group for this TRS because that's a good place for learning, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So depending on and I have an article on the blog as well at eatbeautiful.net if you want to look at which zeolite is right for me. And I go through 2 different powder options and the spray. So if you're not sure which one is best for you, you can look at that article. But yeah, that Facebook group is for the spray. That's great.
And then I just have sauna, walking movement is important for your detox pathways. You can do lymphatic massage is helpful. The funny thing is, like, people think like sauna is like the number one detox practice. Like, no, it's actually pooping.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Good. That's well said. And then I think if someone already knows about pooping, then it's worth mentioning sauna. Like if you didn't also have sauna on your radar, you don't have to buy one. You can, go to a gym, or you can buy one. And then, we talked about, I think when I met with you and your wife, but you're actually detoxing copper out of your sweat and nickel. And so there is a huge value in sauna. And if you're not doing that, are you playing really rigorous basketball or going for runs 5 times a week, you need to be sweating. We need to be sweating because it is a very important detox pathway.
And you need to be moving, right?
We need to be moving. Yep. We need circulation. And another one we could add here is grounding or earthing. So getting your bare feet on the grass or in wild water. That's another important thing.
Getting in the sun too, I'm sure helps with your detox too, right?
Yep, all of that.
Yeah.
And those are just things that add joy too. And one thing we haven't talked about yet is stress. It's a main element for any health issues is stress. And so when you get out and you start walking and grounding and moving, you feel more joy. And that's a great way to start gaining awareness about letting go of stress and reducing stress as well.
Nice. This is just a handout. It's a one-page handout that I give my patients. So just want people to be aware of that. I can make this available. I have a Telegram group for people who don't know. So these kind of things, I've got all these resources in there. So it's just a one-pager explaining the whole detox strategy and binding bile and, all these things that we're talking about. And then this is so now we're going to get into your list of how to make this fun.
Okay, cool.
So this is what you sent me of like some different meal ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about your waffles. You've got granola ideas, bread ideas. Do you think you want to go through these now, or should we go through some of the pictures?
Sure, we could go through the pictures, but I think just knowing that really whatever you miss when you start a restricted diet, there's an answer for it. As long as, you have that spirit of like, I want to make this work. There are so many ways you can use these ingredients to make great, delicious food. So, yeah, just knowing there's hope, there's encouragement. I meet with clients. That's what I do, is give people ideas on how to flourish. And so, yeah, there can be quite a bit of variety.
Nice. Okay. So you didn't send me this one, but I had to add it in.
Sure. Sure. So this go ahead.
Looking for, like, if you just Google "eat beautiful waffles," you can see there's 3 different of your blog posts that come up.
Mm-hmm.
So go on.
Yeah, so I think I have a crazy number of waffle recipes on the blog, and that's because we've used them so much in our family over the years. Waffles are it's easier to create a successful waffle recipe with limited ingredients than it is to create a whole loaf of bread, because obviously we've all seen muffins or loaves of bread that sink in the middle. But a waffle, the cool thing about an iron is it infuses steam into the batter or dough, and it causes a rise no matter what. So it's just a lot easier to take restricted ingredients and create something delicious. And so when people don't have bread anymore, a waffle is a good stand-in. And then as you improve, you can add in, I have a bunch of bread recipes on my website as well. But yeah, so with the low vitamin A, anti-inflammatory approach to eating, there are many different waffles on the website made from many different ingredients. And I do that because there are people who can only eat ingredients 1, 2, and 3, and then there's another group of people that can only eat ingredients 4, 5, and 6. And so I try to create, okay, this waffle is made just with plantains. This waffle is made just with beans and rice. This is an oat flour waffle. This is a 100% rice flour waffle. Most of them have no eggs because they're just inflammatory for most people, but some of them will have egg whites. Most of them have no dairy. So it's just an easy way to give someone a treat. And carbs make us feel satisfied. So having a waffle when you can't have bread, you can finish your meal and feel like, yeah, that was delicious. I want to do that again tomorrow. So yeah.
What do you like to put on your waffles then?
All kinds of things. So when I'm at my healthiest, I do nothing but a little bit of salt, and I cut them into quarters and eat it like toast with a cup of tea. And that's really delicious. And it's a good habit to get into because it is really easy to put syrup or fruit or yogurt on your waffles. So that's my favorite habit, is just salt and a cup of tea and just enjoy the waffle. I think so often we want to make everything bodacious and, with all the sauces and things, that we stop tasting just like, what do oats taste like? What is just, what are these simple, and you chew it and you're like, this is delicious, just in the bread itself, right? So, and most of my waffle recipes do contain a certain amount of olive oil or avocado oil, not a lot, but a little. So, they're moist, delicious, crispy on the outside. That's a nice recipe. It's easy to enjoy. But I also do make a strawberry sauce or mixed berry sauce, or we use pure maple syrup. My husband uses butter. I'll drizzle a little bit of olive oil on mine because I prefer it to, I don't personally do butter right now. So anything and everything. My son does yogurt. Let's see. I guess my youngest doesn't do as well with with syrup. So we do a little bit of fat and then coconut sugar on hers. So you can really do a huge variety of toppings.
Awesome. All right, next.
Yeah, so this is masa. It's not as familiar in our culture other than corn tortillas. And these days, thankfully, if you go to a natural grocery store, you can find masa tortillas that are made with just, you know, masa and lime and water. And masa, just for people who don't know, it's a way of making corn gentle. It's an actual ancestral technique where the corn is soaked in lime, and it's basically the lectins and the other onerous compounds are reduced, and it becomes this very gentle, nourishing food that is also a good source of calcium. And so a lot of people don't know that about masa, that it's a great source of calcium, and there aren't that many great food sources of calcium that aren't dairy. So this is masa porridge. It's just such a simple, delicious, nourishing breakfast or snack or dessert. And it's just basically cooking masa with water. It's a very ancestral type recipe, but you basically just make a smooth porridge, a lot like cream of wheat. And then you can make it thin enough to drink, or you can do it like this with a spoon. With, you know,
you do the lime process, or that's when you buy it, it's already been done?
It's already been done. Yeah. And
Okay.
you can buy either white or blue. White is the least toxic, if you want to use that strong word. But as far as, like, you know, the different compounds that are in each version, yellow is the kind to avoid because it has more vitamin A. And blue is perfectly healthy, but it does have some level of nickel. So if someone wanted to detox nickel, you would choose white. So you can look for heirloom or organic white masa on Amazon, or wherever you like to shop, and just make sure you look for the white or the blue.
Awesome. I'll have to try that. I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
Okay, next here. This is the showstopper.
I should mention real quick on the masa too, as far as we were talking about waffles, I also have a really good masa waffle on the website.
Okay.
So if someone wants an introduction to masa, I would encourage that. Just you want a good waffle, the masa waffles are great.
Nice.
Okay, so Healthy Meza Feast. This is just a good example of how you can eat a gourmet Mediterranean style diet while you're on an anti-inflammatory or restricted diet. And it doesn't have to feel restricted. You can make it really beautiful. And I feel like this photo doesn't even do it justice, because you can do so much more. This is just one example, but the idea is to kind of eat with the seasons. And so whatever is seasonal and beautiful at the time that's colorful, you know, go ahead and grab that. And obviously some things are going to have more polyphenols, and we're going to stay away from those things. Like green grapes are better than red grapes, but strawberries, pomegranates, fresh mint, lemon juice, these are all kind of fun condiments you can put on the table. And then the main dish can be any kind of meat that you love. So if this is a Mediterranean or Middle Eastern style meal, in this case, this particular photo is showing chicken cooked with za'atar, which is this wonderful spice blend in the Middle East made with sumac and oregano and sesame and some other wonderful spices and herbs. It just has an amazing flavor. And then we've got some homemade hummus or hummus, which I have a version on my website that's a paleo version also that's made with zucchini, but this picture is the chickpea version or garbanzo bean. So 2 variations on the website for people who aren't eating legumes. And then artichoke hearts, cucumbers, and then whatever bread works for you. I always try to encourage people that there's probably a bread for everyone, like no matter how restricted you are. So the main thing is look at the ingredients if you're buying it. So this is true. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Canada, it's required to use fortified flour at this time. And so that means every bread loaf you pick up, and again, correct me, maybe in the natural food markets, this is not the case.
So this company I vetted and I reached out to them, and so it's called Better Basics. They're out of Alberta or something. And I contacted them, and they assured me they don't fortify with anything. They figured out how to get past that somehow.
Awesome. Yes, you have to be very intentional.
Yeah.
But you'll be surprised. You'll pick up 20 loaves of bread before you find one that's not fortified. So that just means look at the ingredients. And if you see riboflavin, reduced iron, Folic acid, those are all poisons. Those are all forms of vitamins that are harmful. We want to be super intentional about what supplements we take. We do not want the government fortifying our flour for us with forms of supplements that we don't agree with. And so you just can't buy any loaf of bread anymore, even if it looks natural, even if it's sourdough. Yeah, so this is showing a flatbread. So whether you're making bread homemade, my website is a good resource because it has so many different kinds of loaves, flatbreads, waffles, whatever. But this is just showing whatever you have, you can make a feast out of it.
Yeah, and like you talk about lamb and stuff.
Yes,
lamb, yeah.
Exactly. So there's a boneless lamb roast that I get at Trader Joe's that's a good price. It's grass-fed. And, lamb is, I don't know what you think about lamb, but I think lamb's always delicious. So you put that in the centerpiece, and then you have the hummus and the bread and all of the other things. It's a feast. So that's the approach mentally when you're eating, if you want it to be.
Totally. So there's the link down here. You sent me this link today.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Okay.
If you want to find the mezza, yeah. And these are just a couple up close photos of the meat or the hummus. And then lots of variations on that. This is a pot sticker soup made with cabbage and mushrooms. It's just a delicious, simple soup with a super rich, delicious stock. And one of the main things I teach in my second cookbook and on the website is how to make a simple meat stock. And we don't need to feel like we need to eat bone broth. In fact, sometimes bones and skin and cartilage aren't the healthiest things to be boiling in water. Instead, you can make a really simple meat stock that's super flavorful and has natural gelatin in it. And so this is the most popular soup recipe on my website. It's delicious and very easy to make, one pot recipe.
Looks amazing.
But there's several others as well where you can just get this, very satisfying umami meat stock.
Oh, I was going to say that before, like there's certain foods that are much better to add the MSG than I put it on my oats one time and I'll never do that again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just add it to my water personally, but I know if you're only sprinkling it on your food, you figure out pretty fast which ones it doesn't taste good.
But it's amazing on something like this or like meat or something, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Where it should be.
Good with rice.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what it says, dairy-free Mary Me chicken. So this is a good example. Most Mary Me chicken is made with sun-dried tomatoes and leafy green like spinach. So we've taken those out because they're inflammatory in one way or another and replaced them with asparagus and roasted cauliflower. And you end up with this great creamy sauce and the sauteed chicken, and it's delicious, satisfying, and it's anti-inflammatory.
Beautiful.
And this is a fun one for the holidays. I've been making this stuffing for years. You can make it with any bread. So you can make it with a grain-free biscuit. You can make it with sourdough. You can make it with cornbread. You can make it with any bread, but it's the basic principles of the recipe. Every year we're eating with people that don't eat anything like what we eat, and this paleo stuffing goes away first. And actually it says paleo stuffing, and that's accurate for the photo, but I make one with sourdough that's not paleo, but it's the same recipe otherwise. And they're all equally good. So it's just the basic approach to ratios of what ingredients to use in the stuffing. And I think it's the best stuffing there is.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wish I lived closer to you.
Yeah, and I guess you guys don't have Thanksgiving. Do you eat stuffing at
No, we have Thanksgiving, but it's in October. We just have it a month earlier.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, we have stuffing and all that. Yeah.
I'm ignorant. I should have known that.
But I'm gonna put in a vote for this stuffing this year.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And then just use your bread of choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of more recipes. The Tom Kha Gai is a really popular Thai, basically creamy chicken soup with coconut milk and lime juice and ginger. It's just so good. You just take one bite of it and you're happy. You can serve this to guests or make it any weeknight, and it's just a really good soup. And so simple, one pot recipe also. And then the spicy honey lime chicken thighs, just another good anti-inflammatory, simple chicken recipe. Again, good enough to serve to guests or just make any weeknight, but it's got a delicious sauce. I do tend to use these similar ingredients quite a bit. The ginger, the lime, the chicken has honey. Obviously, the Tom Kha Gai does not, but some of these same ingredients can pop up in different settings, and you can feel like they're very different recipes, but in fact, you're repeatedly using certain ingredients that are gentle.
So if they just search this for your website, they'll find these?
Right. Yeah. You can go to eatbeautiful.net and type into the top right corner, Tom Kha Gai, or you could just type into Google, but you'd probably need to put eatbeautiful.net. Some of my recipes will rank first or third, second or third, but if they don't, then you'll need to go to the website to find it easily.
Awesome.
Yeah. Asian meatballs, sheet pan dinner, just another easy mixing meat with a few simple ingredients. Coconut aminos are a really great tool on anti-inflammatory diets. They're appropriate for most people, no matter what your restriction is. And it's just like a soy-free soy sauce, basically, but a little bit sweeter. So these meatballs have coconut aminos, ginger. Ginger is the dried ginger we think of using for gingerbread. It actually is a great stand-in for pepper. So pepper is high in copper and not ideal for certain people when you're trying to do anti-inflammatory. You can pretty much use dried ginger in its place. So this is an example of, the meatballs and the veggies, they were all roasted on the same sheet pan. And then there's just a simple herb sauce that's used over the rice. And yeah, again, just showing that it can be beautiful. You can make a big bowl and have a marinated cucumber salad and fresh herbs, and it doesn't have to be boring.
It's a little bit better than the carnivore diet, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, one more. The no-mato sauce is cool. It's made with beets and onions and carrots and ginger and lime juice. And so it's nightshade free, so no tomatoes. And I also have a no-mato soup on the blog that's made with peaches and cherries. So you can.
Would you use like a white carrot or something?
Yes, you'd use a white carrot, exactly.
Okay.
And you can even use white beets. So it just depends how anti-inflammatory you want to go and how important it is for you to address health issues. But yeah, you can absolutely. That's what we do here. And for us, we also peel our zucchini. I didn't for the photo because it adds color to the picture. But yeah, for at home, we peel our zucchini because it's just, a place that plants store their toxins is in.
That's another principle is like cucumber, for example, like you should always peel your cucumber and apples I don't peel.
Right. Because the fiber is valuable.
Right.
Yeah. If someone wanted to do low nickel, they could peel their apples, but most of us don't.
So that's it. Okay. So Megan does have a couple of cookbooks too. And I looked at your Instagram. I think there's some great recipes on there too. So I thought I know you're not that active anymore, but still a good place, right?
Sure. Absolutely. I may get back into it at some point.
I think you should. I mean, I'd like to encourage you to even make another cookbook too, because I think like people would love that.
Thanks.
But it sounds like your website's even better, actually.
It really is. It really is. I feel like the cookbooks are a snapshot in time, and they're really great for people transitioning from a standard American diet. But like the secrets from a bone broth kitchen, obviously I've just told you, and I even talk about it in the cookbook, but I do believe meat stock is better than bone broth. But we did our paleo, our ice cream kefir soft serve frozen yogurt shops turned into full cafes where we made bone broth soups.
Oh, nice.
And so that cookbook came out of that period in my life. And I do include the low vitamin A recipes in the cookbook, as well as many other different sort of wellness diet approaches. But I think the website is the best because then you can go straight to what you want. So
and you have so many different variations, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can hone in on exactly what's going to fit your lifestyle without buying a cookbook that will have some things you don't necessarily want. So I'm proud of them, but being honest, for where I am in my life right now, that was a snapshot of then. So
right. So, and then you're open for people who want to work one-on-one with you. I just thought I'd make sure people know about that.
Sure.
I highly recommend working with Megan, everybody. So
Thank you.
Is that the best place to contact? Your email down there?
Yeah, that is. And I just ask people, if you want to work with me as a nutrition coach, you would just send me a short email with a little bit of health history and sort of what your goal is or what your problem is. And we'll find a date and dive in. And I think that's one of the things I'm good at is really individualizing my time with each individual client and making sure that I hear and listen well to what that person's needs are. And I meet them where they are, whether it be with a specific recipe or outlining their dietary goals, but empowering them to succeed.
Amazing. So, you know what? I just remembered when we were talking about Grant Genereux and you were saying how he's so smart and like it's frustrating sometimes that people won't want to listen. He even talks about how his wife won't listen to him. And I just thought that was so funny because I think a lot of us have that kind of experience where I don't know, it
Yeah.
was just nice to hear that,
Yeah.
oh wow, even this guy
Yeah.
has, the same type of challenge, right? But
Yes.
even my wife just came in to give me the stare. But I always recommend like whenever I'm talking to somebody for the first time, I always recommend your stream with Garrett, number
Mm,
222. I think that was such a good one. So that's like often the introduction to this whole area that I'll first send people. So if you
thanks.
haven't seen that, definitely check it out. And here's all my stuff for anyone who doesn't know me. This is our team. And you can find out about our office at terraindental.ca. My Instagram is where I'm most active, Dr. J. Camastra. And then my interview with Dr. Smith is now where I send people who want to learn about my stuff. That's everything. We did pretty good. We almost went for 2 hours.
Isn't it amazing? The time goes by so fast.
So I just wanted to say to you that I'm so glad I had you, because I was planning on doing, like, this has been such a big part of my life for the last 9 months or so. And I was planning on doing this presentation, but it was so much better having you here, and you've been at it for so much longer that it was just way, way better having you be here for this. So thank you so much.
Good.
You're such a delight, really.
Mm.
So anything else before we have time for a few questions here? I don't hope everyone who's stuck with us, thank you. You guys are real fanatics.
I want to reciprocate and say thank you for having me on, and it's my privilege.
Oh, well, it's really nice to connect with such good people.
Yep. Yep. It is. And it's encouraging when you do something crazy like this to see that other intelligent people are doing it also.
Well, it's like you have to really be careful not to be like religious about one of these different diet fads, right? So like you learn about something and then it becomes part of your identity, whether it's like growing your own chickens, like raising your own chickens, or making, certain, like having organs and all this, like it becomes, people take it on as their identity. And then after 6 months or 12 months, it's like, okay, do you feel how you were hoping you were going to feel when you started this new thing you were doing? And if the answer is no, then probably you've missed something somewhere along the way and something's not working for you. And like that's sometimes the biggest barrier, is these belief systems that we all sort of can like fall into a trap with, and then we're our own worst enemy sometimes, right?
Sure, absolutely. If we think something is right, then we can stick with it way too long, determined to wait till it works. And that's what I did with the GAPS diet for 6 years. So
Wow.
yeah, when you're not getting results, you might get initial results, but if you stop getting results and start getting new autoimmune diseases, it's time to rethink.
Yeah. Okay, Geeta.
Can I talk?
Yes, yeah, please.
Sorry. My question was like, when you're talking about the copper in different things like green or red veggies, is it because of the soil? Is the contaminated and has a copper, or the veggie anyway, even the organic one, if you make sure, is it like possible that there is no copper in, good ones maybe?
Okay, no, good question. The vegetables inherently are high in copper. Yeah, and it is true that many produce sources will be depleted of certain minerals over time. For example, Brazil nuts are lower in selenium than they used to be, or a lot of produce items are lower in the minerals we want. But unfortunately, copper is just a metal that is common in vegetable foods, and I think that the vegetable food should be a smaller portion of our overall food that we take in, instead of what is the modern trend right now with like a rainbow diet where people are eating a lot of produce, a lot of colorful produce. And that's really sort of a modern day experiment over the last 10 to 20 years that we never saw in history until now. So in former cultures, no diet, no plate was dominated by colorful produce. So it's not Dr. Smith would even say that those colors are kind of a warning that, you know, kind of like red berries, don't eat them, you know, if you see them in the forest. He would say that the very colorful foods are a warning to be cautious and don't eat a lot of them. We should be eating more lightly colored foods. It's just a paradigm shift that's hard to adjust to.
And there's new factors in the environment that are making some of these problems worse. So the EMF problem didn't exist through 30 years ago or so. And so like copper is very conductive to electricity. That's what we use in our homes and in buildings for our power. And so when you get, you know, molecules of copper scattered throughout your body, you're now becoming an antenna for
Yes.
these wireless frequencies. And so somebody who is more sensitive to them, it could be because of like a copper toxicity problem. And then if you detox the copper, now you're not as sensitive to the EMFs. And
That's
then it's also like copper is one of the crazy ones that in the alternative health world, there it's touted as this superfood and this essential thing, but copper is a known contraceptive. So one of the contraceptive things is a IUD, and like they make them out of copper and they put them up into the uterus, and it makes a woman infertile. And so it's another factor in infertility is this copper toxicity problem, right?
And I could add something also. Is it Gita? How you pronounce it?
Gita. Yeah.
Okay, I'll add something else that is more pointed to your question, which is there is some copper added to produce these days. It's a new form of insecticide or herbicide. I don't know. I think it's a pesticide, but I think it's copper sulfate and it's sprayed on crops. And that's a newer pesticide that's being used and touted as being natural. So that is added copper.
Yeah, it's like organic. It's approved for organic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's frightening. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you
Michelle,
so much.
Go ahead. You want to? Oh, go ahead, Gita.
No, I was saying thank you so much for, you know, your time. And my question regarding copper is, do we need even copper, or we don't need even copper?
Even by even eating, like trying to avoid copper, you would still get some. So if there's an argument that you need some, you're going to get enough. You're not going to be deficient in copper.
Right. You do need some. That is true, but it's a very small amount.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was very, very good, actually. Video. Thank you for both of you, actually, for your time.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
This is going to save me so much time in the clinic because I spend so much time talking about this stuff.
Yes, I bet.
That's true.
Okay, Michelle asked, Megan, would you recommend your cookbook for those following low vitamin A / low copper, or was this done before you started this diet? Wondering how many recipes would apply for me.
Right. If I remember correctly, there are about 20 low vitamin A soup recipes in the cookbook. And I think there's maybe like 100 or 120 total. So it would be maybe 1/5 of the overall recipes in there are low vitamin A. So it just depends, you know, if it's worth it to you. I do recommend it, but I just want people's eyes to be open going in, that if you want a free resource, the blog is a good place to go because you're going to get free vitamin A recipes. On the blog, for those who don't know, I call it VAD, Vitamin A Detox.
Right.
So if you type in VAD in the search engine, you're going to get all the low vitamin A recipes, and there are a lot. But yeah, I do recommend the cookbook depending on, you know, if it's in your budget and you want one more thing, it does. I started the diet maybe like 6 months before the cookbook was published, and I was like, quick, I've got to add a bunch of low vitamin A because now I really know the truth. So just, you know, push aside all the other recipes and focus, if you buy it, on just the low vitamin A.
I'm having the same challenge because I created a patient information booklet for anyone that comes to see me. And it's like 40 pages of everything and it's like got your informed consent and your contract, and it's got nutrition stuff and everything, but it keeps changing and I have to keep changing. So it's been like a year and still haven't like published. I like got it printed.
Yes.
And yeah, it's like I just know that I'm just gonna have to do it, and then I'm gonna have to update it for the next print, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Michelle, do you want to share your testimonial?
That's up to you, but I think it would be helpful. I'm sitting in the dark. Sorry.
This is my sister.
Yeah.
Who we had some interesting chats over the years because she was she has her own chickens and all of that, and was doing the organ supplements and everything. And I was like, Michelle, you might want to look at this.
Can you turn that off for a second? So yeah, I have two young children, and I really struggle with weight gain, like losing the postpartum weight gain. And after having my daughter, I think she was maybe 6 or 7 months old, I was really struggling, and Julian had sent me the information about the low vitamin A, and I just said, Julian, I don't have the capacity to be told that everything I'm doing is wrong. Like I can't handle that right now. And 6 months from then, I was still really struggling, despite like eating very healthy. Similar story to Julian. Him and I have both struggled with weight a lot of our life. And I messaged him saying, okay, if I wanted to learn more about this or wanted to try it, what would you recommend? Like, where would you recommend I start? And he said, I thought you'd never ask. And I actually listened to your podcast, Megan, on Dr. Smith's podcast, and went pretty cold turkey, I would say. Just more in like cutting out eggs, sweet potato, like we eat a lot of those foods. And I was struggling with a little bit of like mild depression just from, I was like chronic fatigue, exhausted, really didn't feel like myself, like just kind of getting through the day. And within a week, my energy had 180'd. I felt fine, like more positive. I like having way more energy, feeling way more myself. And I've been doing it for maybe just 6 to 8 weeks now, and feel better than I have in the past year for sure. So it was really quick for me too, Megan, in terms of those mental health benefits and energy benefits.
That's
I'm just
awesome.
like trusting the process and hoping that the weight, I mean, I feel a lot better when I wake up in the morning in my body, but I'm just trusting that it takes time and that the rest will follow based on how good I'm feeling now. Mm-hmm. And I did a consult with Megan too, a couple of weeks ago, and she was really, really helpful in giving me lots of ideas and supporting how to implement some of these supplements, because it felt very overwhelming to me to do on my own. So she was great.
See, for me, it took I started in July, and I didn't start feeling better until like December. So it was like almost 6 months. And I had a massive detox September, October, November, where I just had terrible energy and I felt like crap. I felt like I was living in clouds, like just dark, like, and I was negative, and it was really dark. And then I didn't even realize I was in it until like December. I finally woke up one day and I'm like, oh my God, I feel incredible. And it felt like just like the clouds parted, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been living in a fog for the last 3 months. And I had like the whole month of November, I was sick, and I had all this yellow mucus coming out of my nose that it's gross, but I could have filled up like multiple mason jars full of yellow snot. and now I know, like we were talking about vitamin C and those things before, like I used to hammer the vitamins when I was sick, and now I basically don't do anything. It's like I just let it run. And so I had symptoms for a month of just, and now I know it's my body detoxing. It's nothing else. And so if my body wants to do that, I'm going to let it. There are negatives to detoxing too fast, and you can feel too crappy. That there are some sort of techniques to make it happen a little bit more slowly and more gradual. I think maybe I pushed a little too hard, and that's partly why I felt so lousy. But anyway, like, yeah, it took 6 months for me to feel better.
Good. It's a good voice to put in there so people know the varieties that, the variety of ways they could feel.
I didn't know. I'm more of like somebody will try anything. I was high functioning. I just want to do the best thing for myself at all times. So I actually didn't even know that I was struggling so much until then. I started needing way less sleep. I had way more energy, and I'm like, wow, I actually was not operating at full capacity at all, but I didn't know any better, you don't know how good you can feel.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I feel that way as well with just the return of energy like I had when I was young. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And joy. I do think it's a huge benefit to mental health for some people.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any questions? Julie said, thank you for the presentation. I will look at your recipes. Seem delicious. She's a natural, or no, she's a doctor. So I think she's an MD. So we got.
Thank you so much.
It's me again, if nobody has
Yeah,
question.
go for it.
Just 1 second. It's a vitamin A, what they say we need for eye, you know. So how we know, is it enough getting from the food for eyes too? Like if someone doesn't eat much like carrot things,
Yes.
you know, we don't need supplement because it can be excessive, you know, vitamin A.
Good question. Yeah, well, I think Grant Genereux is a good example that over the course of 10 plus years, his eye health has actually improved. And he is the lowest vitamin A of anyone in the community. I think most people eat more broadly than he does. He's tried to be on a zero vitamin A diet on purpose as a scientific experiment to see what would happen to his eye health because of that medical claim. And he has tried to, over the years, basically disprove that vitamin A is required for eye health. So I think that when you look back at the original rat studies of how it was connected to eye health, you can see that the studies were incorrect. The animals were actually fed toxic amounts of vitamin A. It's a little bit too much to get into, but suffice it to say, I think that no vitamin A is required for good eye health, and it will be a while before that conclusion is drawn from the studies. But if you look at the studies themselves, or if you look at, for example, my gerbils or my rats, we can see, or Grant Genereux, we can see that eye health ideally would actually improve as vitamin A is taken out of the diet. With that being said, there may be other components involved in eye health that we don't know as much about. For example, oxalates or other things that someone's eyes could fluctuate over the years on a low or zero vitamin A diet. So, but I don't personally think vitamin A is required for eye health.
Thank you so much. I appreciate, Megan.
Yeah.
And Geeta, I just learned this like last week. Carrots were never orange. They were white. And then the Dutch Empire, Dutch government, like, you know, a few hundred years ago, they figured out how to make them orange because it matched their flag. And then they ended up being more marketable and they sold better. Orange, it was just more attractive. And so that's why that's why carrots are orange. So it's not even a naturally occurring thing that would be required in nature for us to be healthy. You know, I want to ask you another thing, Megan. I get the rebuttal I get from a lot of smart people, like scientific minded people. They say, oh, how come, you know, this guy lived to 120 years old and his secret was carrot juice and he was, you know, like living off of carrot juice. And like, what do you say to that? Like these like ultra high dose vitamin A kind of protocols.
I've honestly never heard of someone who lived off of carrot juice and lived to be old. I mean, unless, you know, I've never heard that story. So I don't think that exists. I don't think that's real. I mean, I think that person would turn orange and they would be admitted to the hospital. And I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is that acute vitamin A toxicity is a known medical condition, as is chronic vitamin A toxicity. They're both known medical conditions.
Yeah.
You know, many times people have had too much carrot juice and had to go to the hospital, or eaten a moose liver and had to go to the hospital or whatever. So it's known to be a toxin. It's just that only now in history, when people are eating these rainbow diets and loading up on liver and taking vitamin A fish oil and taking multivitamins, are we realizing, oh, most people are probably toxic with vitamin A at this point, and their conditions are oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes a reflection of a toxic liver. So I don't know. Have you ever heard of someone that you can say like, yes, I know of a person? No. So I don't think those are real stories.
Well, I know about the Ray Peat type people. Do you know about Ray Peat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like carrot salad is like a big thing on the Ray Peat, but then you find out that the people who are following Ray Peat are like notoriously
Dying.
sick.
Yeah. Exactly. That's just a terrible diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the people that end up in our group,
Yes.
among others,
Yeah,
to get well because they've made themselves really sick.
exactly. I'm good to call it a night. I mean, I'm loving this, and this has been amazing. I've like, you've filled me with a lot of energy tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep, but yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there any closing thoughts you had?
I don't think so. Just, I guess if people are curious about the science, go read Poisoning for Profits. That if you're really not sure, you're skeptical about the science part of it, go read Poisoning for Profits, because that's all it is he goes through the studies and it's so compelling. Or if you want to learn more on any other topic, go to the YouTube, Dr. Smith's Nutrition Detective YouTube channel, and type in any topic and you can learn more about any of the little rabbit trails that this conversation can go down.
Can we just talk about like vegan diets for a minute?
Sure.
Can you just because I think many people have had a experience. I tried that for 2 years when I was in dental school. I actually did okay, but I had such a craving for meat that like my buddy made dinner one time, and I made a rule that I wasn't going to turn down food because I didn't like that feeling of like somebody cooking you dinner. It's like one of the most gracious things, and to then turn around and say, oh no, like I'm sorry, I can't eat that, like it never sat well. So I went over for like Easter dinner and he made a leg of lamb over a bed of potatoes. So I just made the decision, I'm just going to eat it. Right?
Yeah.
And so then I ate the plate, and then I found myself, I was like ravenous. I went back into his kitchen and I had a big knife and I was just cutting pieces off the leg of lamb, just like eating them. And he's laughing. He's like, look at this vegan over here. and then I was like, I think I need meat. Like anyway.
I have a similar story, which is that I got pregnant with our second child. I went through my first pregnancy as a vegetarian, eating peanut butter. I did eat eggs, peanut butter and eggs. And the second pregnancy, I just started craving meat. And so I started driving in secret to the health food store, buying natural deli turkey and like gobbling it up in secret in my car. And then I finally admitted it to my husband. I didn't want anyone to know, because then I thought, then they're going to all expect me to start eating meat. But I was doing it because I've always cared about animal welfare, and I didn't like how the animals were raised, the bad husbandry principles. So then I admitted to myself, my body needs meat. As a pregnant woman, I need meat. There are some basic nutrients that as vegan or vegetarians, we wouldn't be getting. Taurine is one. It's in meat, and you can only get it in meat. And similar to cats, they have to put it in cat food, because without it, they can add all the sweet potatoes and blueberries they want to the cat food. But ultimately, cats need meat, and so do we. So taurine is a nutrient that a vegan person would be highly deficient in. Often there are B12 and iron issues for vegans. And then obviously the toxicity side, you're going to be getting way too much copper, because all those foods are going to be high in copper, as well as vitamin A. So you're going to be doing deficiency and toxicity both with a vegan diet. And that would be for probably, 99 out of 100 people. There's always going to be the one exception, but for the most part, we're omnivores and our bodies need those nutrients.
Yeah, I watched that movie Earthlings or something like that in 2011 or 12, and I was like, okay, that's it. You see the conditions and you're like, I can't participate in that, right?
Right.
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings is, your biology doesn't care about your ideology.
Yes, I love that one as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so really, we have to find kinder sources of protein.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to answer another question? Geeta asked, do you agree with fasting for detoxing?
Sure. So the downside of fasting is that it stops the whole process Dr. J was talking about with the bile exiting the liver and it going out through the alimentary canal. It just stops that whole detox process. So you feel better short term on fasting because your body is no longer putting the toxic bile into the GI tract. It's just stopping it completely. And so, people feel better short term. But to actually detox, there's a lot, we didn't talk about this, but there are a lot of different detoxes out there. This is the only one I've ever come across that actually detoxes the liver and other tissues. And you can scientifically look at how it's happening. And it's actually occurring. And so, short-term fast, unfortunately, doesn't really, it just empties the GI tract. So you feel better. But once detox starts again, once the bile starts flowing again, you're going to feel badly again.
And yeah, when I started getting into this, I started asking some of my colleagues, oh, I'm learning about, the liver and the detox. And it's like, oh yeah, I did a liver cleanse, like a 3-day liver cleanse last year. And what I've learned now is like, no, it takes a long time.
Right. There's no such thing.
Yeah. Okay. I think we should call it for now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thank you so much, Megan. It was such a pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much for having me and including me.
My pleasure, truly. Okay. You have yourself a wonderful night.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.